The recovery room was quiet except for the soft beeping of a monitor and the low murmur of relieved voices near the door. Weinan lay in the hospital bed, pale and exhausted, her body still recovering from surgery that had ended only an hour earlier. A nurse stood near the window, cradling a newborn wrapped in a soft blue blanket, a healthy baby boy, and the long-awaited heir of the Jeon family. The nurse smiled warmly toward the man standing frozen just inside the doorway. "Mr. Jeon," she said, "would you like to hold your son?" Jungkook looked at the baby. Then his eyes moved past the nurse entirely, landing on Weinan. Without a word, he walked straight past the newborn and crossed the room to his wife's bedside. His hands were trembling as he reached for her face, brushing damp hair away from her forehead. He kissed her there gently, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Thank God you're okay." Everyone in the room went still with surprise. Mine, more than anyone, couldn't understand it. 9 months earlier, Jeon Jungkook had agreed to marry her for one brutally practical reason. He needed an heir before his cousin could take his position as CEO. So now that the heir had finally arrived, safe and healthy in a nurse's arms just a few feet away, why was he acting like Weinan was the only person he'd been waiting for all along? It had all begun in the Jeon family dining room, months before any of this. Crystal chandeliers threw soft light across the long table, silverware gleaming against white porcelain. The kind of dinner that looked elegant and felt suffocating in equal measure. Jungkook had been called home in the middle of the work week, and he already had a fairly good idea why. "There's someone we'd like you to meet," his mother said, setting down her wine glass with practiced casualness. 25, very well educated. Studied in Paris for 2 years, comes from an excellent family. "We've had this conversation too many times," Jungkook said flatly. "I'm not interested in blind dates. The company is at a critical stage." His father set down his fork with more force than necessary. "You're 28, Jungkook. This can't wait forever. My position as CEO was built through profits, expansion, and results," Jungkook said. "Not a marriage certificate." He was already pushing back his chair to leave when his grandfather's voice cut through the room, calm and immovable. "Sit down." The temperature of the room seemed to drop several degrees. Jungkook sat. "You've proven yourself capable," Grandpa Jeon said. "No one is disputing that. But the board and this family gave you that opportunity in the first place. Have you forgotten that?" "I earned the seat through results," Jungkook said. "I'm not denying the results," his grandfather said. "I'm asking what happens after you. A company like ours doesn't survive on quarterly earnings alone. It survives on stability the board can see and trust for the next 30 years. Leadership ability has nothing to do with marriage or children," Jungkook said. "The board doesn't only evaluate ability," his grandfather replied. "It evaluates continuity." Then he said the words that changed everything. "I'm considering supporting Bam Bam as the next CEO." Jungkook stared at him. Bam Bam can barely read a basic earnings report without someone explaining it to him twice. "Bam Bam is already married?" Grandpa Jeon said. "If he starts a family before you do, the more conservative members of the board will see his branch as the more stable choice, regardless of who understands earnings reports better." "Leadership does not come from someone's womb," Jungkook said, sharper than he intended. "Then prove you can offer both," his grandfather said. "Leadership and continuity. Marry, build a family, secure the succession properly, or watch the board hand your work to someone else." Jungkook's jaw tightened. "I won't marry some stranger just to produce an heir like it's a business transaction." "You don't have to find anyone," his grandfather said. "I already have." The room went silent. "Park Weinan," Grandpa John said. Jungkook recognized the name instantly. The Park family, one of the wealthiest and most respected names in the country. "She's Park Seon-ho's granddaughter," his grandfather continued. "My oldest friend. She lost her parents young and she's his only heir. She controls a significant share of the Park family empire in her own right. She doesn't need our money, Jungkook. She's not desperate. She's exactly what this family needs, and more capable than you're giving her credit for before you've even met her." "If she has everything already," Jungkook said, "why would she agree to marry someone she's never met?" "Seon-ho is old," his grandfather said, quieter now. "His health isn't what it used to be. He's terrified of dying before he knows his granddaughter has someone steady beside her. He trusts our family. He asked her to consider it. She said yes, because she loves her grandfather enough to make that sacrifice." Jungkook sat with that for a long moment, struck by an uncomfortable irony. He was being cornered into this marriage by threat of losing everything he'd built. Weinan was walking into it voluntarily, out of love for a dying man's final wish. Two people, trapped by two very different kinds of duty. "This feels cruel," Jungkook said quietly, turning a woman into a means of producing an heir. "She's already made her choice," his grandfather said, "and if you agree to this, you will treat her with the respect she deserves. She's Seonho's granddaughter, not a business asset." Then came the final line, delivered without any softness at all. "Marry her, and your position is secure. Refuse, and I hand everything you've built to Bam Bam." Jungkook sat in silence, running through 5 years of late nights, acquisitions, subsidiary launches, board fights he'd won through sheer stubbornness, everything he'd built. Everything he refused to lose to someone who couldn't tell a balance sheet from a grocery list. "Set up the meeting," he finally said. "I'll marry her." 2 weeks later, the wedding had already come and gone, cameras flashing, powerful families filling the guest list, careful smiles that revealed nothing real underneath them. Now Jungkook and Yna stood alone in the presidential suite of a 5-star hotel, the city glittering silently below the floor-to-ceiling windows. Yna stood near the glass in her wedding dress, and Jungkook loosened his bow tie, the silence between them heavier than either of them wanted to admit. "Is the dress uncomfortable?" he finally asked. "I'm mentally preparing myself to share a room with a stranger." Yna said, not unkindly, just honest. Jungkook decided the pretending needed to stop. "I know why you married me. Your grandfather asked you to. And I know why you married me," Yna said, turning to face him. "Your grandfather threatened your position as CEO." Jungkook raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You know about that." "I'm not ignorant of how families like ours operate," she said simply. "There's no point fighting about why we're here," Jungkook said. "We both accepted this for our own reasons. I hope we can at least live peacefully." Unexpectedly, Yna laughed. "What's funny?" he asked. "We're both adults," she said. "Nobody kidnapped either of us. Nobody dragged us down the aisle. We both understood exactly what we were agreeing to." She met his eyes evenly. "If I truly believed this marriage would destroy my life, I would have said no. So please don't treat me like a prisoner in my own decision." Jungkook laughed, genuinely surprised. "I expected a much more hostile conversation than this." "Crying tonight won't erase my name from the marriage certificate tomorrow," Yna said, a faint, dry smile touching her mouth. Something shifted in how Jungkook looked at her, not the woman his grandfather had selected, but someone entirely capable of standing as his equal. They agreed, right there by the window, on the terms of their arrangement. No performed romance behind closed doors. No blaming each other for a situation neither had chosen alone. Mutual respect, and honest conversation whenever something needed to be said. Eventually, Jungkook addressed the part neither of them could avoid. "Our families expect a child," he said carefully. "I won't assume the marriage certificate gives me any right to intimacy. If we decide to try for a child, it has to be something we both agree to." "I don't want to wait too long," Yna said. "My grandfather has been dreaming about meeting a great-grandchild. I want to give him that while he's still well enough to enjoy it." "Are you certain?" Jungkook asked once more. "Yes," she said. He stepped closer, the space between them shrinking without either of them quite deciding to close it. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. "Yes," Yna said. The kiss was slow and careful, and when it ended, neither of them stepped back right away. That night, they became husband and wife in every sense. A decision made mutually, still practical at its core, still shaped by two families waiting for an heir, but a decision they had made together nonetheless. Weeks slid into a quiet, functional rhythm. Their sole penthouse became the backdrop for early mornings. Yna at the marble breakfast table, Jungkook already dressed for the office, scrolling through market reports on his tablet between bites of toast. The marriage was no longer cold, exactly, but neither of them had said the words that mattered most. "Difficult acquisition meeting today," Jungkook said one morning, barely looking up. "Don't wait for dinner. I'll be back late." Yna glanced at him and noticed the shadows under his eyes. "Eat something before you go. You know your stomach can't handle that much coffee on an empty stomach." Jungkook looked up, something in his expression softening. "Thank you." It was small, but it was the kind of small that started to matter. Yna kept a full life of her own, reviewing reports from the Park family office, meeting friends for coffee, occasionally sitting in on foundation meetings, losing entire afternoons to novels she'd been meaning to finish for months. She wasn't waiting around for him. And yet, somewhere along the way, she noticed the penthouse felt too quiet whenever he wasn't in it. They kept trying for the child both families expected. At first, Yna told herself this closeness was simply part of the arrangement, nothing more than duty dressed up as intimacy. But slowly, that explanation stopped fitting. She found herself looking forward to the moments Jungkook came home. She found herself disappointed on the night's meetings ran too long. She realized, almost without meaning to, that what had started as obligation was quietly becoming something else entirely. One night, well past midnight, Jungkook came home to find Hwina still awake, a book open on her lap, the lamp casting a soft glow across the bed. "You're still awake?" he asked, tie loosened, jacket slung over one arm, exhaustion written across his face. "I am," she said. "How was the meeting?" "Stubborn shareholders," he muttered, sitting on the edge of the bed. Hwina noticed the tension knotted through his shoulders and moved closer without really thinking about it, her hands working gently against the tight muscle there. "Do you want tea?" she asked. "Or a warm bath, maybe. Anything to help you relax." Jungkook went very still. This wasn't part of any agreement they'd made. He turned slightly, catching her hand in his. "You usually sleep earlier," he said quietly. "Why are you still up?" "I was reading," she said. He didn't believe her, and after a moment she admitted the truth. "I was waiting for you." Something in Jungkook's expression shifted, visibly moved. "We live together now. You don't have to worry every time I'm late." "I know," she said. "I do anyway." He reached up, gently touching her cheek, and kissed her, slower, quieter than before, with none of the practical undertones of their first night together. There was no talk of pregnancy this time, no mention of families, succession, or CEO positions. For the first time, it felt like they were simply choosing each other. Afterward, lying in the dark beside him, Hwina understood something that frightened her more than anything their families had arranged. She had fallen in love with Jaeon Jungkook. This was never supposed to happen. She remembered exactly why he'd married her, to protect a title he'd spent 5 years earning. For her, this had become real. For him, she worried, it might still be exactly what it had always been, part of an arrangement. Several months into the marriage, Hwina sat on the edge of the bathroom counter, staring at the 2 pink lines on the test in her hand. The news moved through both families within hours. Her grandfather wept openly on the phone. Grandpa Jeon was overjoyed. Jungkook's parents began discussing nursery colors, before Hwina had even seen her own doctor. And quietly, without anyone needing to say it directly, the board no longer had any realistic path toward replacing Jungkook with Bam Bam. His position, the very thing that had started this entire arrangement, was now permanently secure. He had exactly what had once motivated him to marry a stranger, and yet something in him had already changed. After the pregnancy announcement, Jungkook became noticeably more careful with her. He attended prenatal appointments whenever he could rearrange his schedule. He held her elbow on the stairs. He checked every single day whether she'd eaten enough. He handled her coats, carried her bags, moved meetings whenever she needed him nearby. He never controlled her choices. She still decided what she wore, what she ate, which appointments mattered most to her, but he supported every decision with quiet, constant attention. And every single act of care carried 2 possible meanings. He made sure she ate, and Hwina thought, for the baby. He rearranged his schedule for appointments, and she thought, for the baby. He asked whether she was tired, and she thought, for the baby. He steadied her on the stairs, and the same quiet thought followed her everywhere, for the baby. As the pregnancy progressed, something else changed too. Jungkook, who had once kissed her without hesitation, who had once reached for her freely, began pulling back. He still held her at night. He still kissed her forehead before sleep. He still talked to the baby in a low, awkward voice, one hand resting against the curve of her stomach. But he stopped initiating anything deeper, and the shift was impossible for Hwina to ignore. She began to believe, quietly and painfully, that she understood exactly why. Before the pregnancy, he had wanted her. Now that she carried his heir, the mission, as she'd started calling it in her own head, was already complete. He didn't need her in the same way anymore. One night, lying facing him in the dark, she hoped he might kiss her the way he used to. Instead, Jungkook tucked the blanket carefully around her shoulders, pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, and murmured something quiet toward her belly. A gentle instruction for their son to grow healthy and not tire his mother out too much. Then he pulled her against his chest, one hand settling protectively over the curve of her stomach, and fell asleep within minutes. Hwina lay awake in the dark long after his breathing evened out. She felt safe, she felt protected, and she felt completely achingly alone. The cruelest part of all of it was that Jungkook held her every night like she was something precious, while Hwina remained utterly convinced that the precious thing was only the child growing inside her. As her due date approached, her obstetric team identified specific concerns that made a planned C-section the safest choice for her particular case. The news sent a ripple of anxiety through both families. On the day Waina was taken into surgery, while both sets of parents waited outside, her grandfather seated in his wheelchair near the window, Grandpa Jian pacing slowly beside him. Jungkook stood closest to the operating room doors, pale, silent, unable to focus on anything but the seconds ticking past. This was the same man who months earlier had viewed fatherhood primarily as a strategy to secure a corporate title. Now, none of that mattered at all. For the first time in years, Jungkook was facing something he couldn't solve with money, authority, or a favorable board vote. When the doctor finally emerged, Jungkook was on his feet before the doors had fully opened. "How is my wife?" he asked immediately. Not the baby's gender, not the delivery details, but Waina first. "She's safe," the doctor said, "and your son is healthy. A boy." The room erupted into quiet, relieved emotion, but Jungkook's focus never fully left the doorway Wainan would eventually be wheeled through, which brought them here. Wainan settled in her recovery bed, the newborn cradled safely in a nurse's arms nearby, and Jungkook walking straight past his long-awaited son to reach his wife's side. His hands trembled as he brushed the hair back from her damp forehead. He kissed her there, then her cheek, then, briefly, her lips. "You were amazing," he said, voice thick. "Thank God you're okay." The nurse, a little unsure how to proceed, gently offered again. "Would you like to hold him now, Mr. Jian? Let his grandparents hold him first," Jungkook said, without turning away from Waina. He wasn't indifferent to his son. Anyone watching could see the emotion barely contained behind his eyes. He simply needed to know Waina was safe before anything else in the world could matter. Waina watched him, unable to reconcile what she was seeing with everything she'd believed for months. This baby had secured his position, fulfilled his grandfather's demand, fulfilled her own grandfather's dying wish. By every account, she'd told herself this child was the entire point of their marriage, and yet Jungkook had walked straight past him. Once the room had emptied, and the family had given them a quiet moment alone, Jungkook sat beside her bed, holding her hand. "Why didn't you go to him first?" Waina finally asked. Jungkook looked confused. "What do you mean? That's your son," she said. "The heir, the entire reason this marriage happened in the first place. Why did you come to me?" Jungkook was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Of course I care about him," he said. "Of course I wanted to know he was safe. But during that surgery, the only thing I could think about was losing you." He paused, his voice dropping lower. "I wanted our child more than I knew how to explain, but I could never have celebrated becoming his father if it meant losing you in the process." Waina stared at him, stunned. "But why?" she asked again, quieter this time. "Our marriage started because of business. Your position is secure now. You have your heir. There's nothing left for you to gain from me." Jungkook didn't flinch from the truth. "You're right," he said. "At first I married you because I was terrified of losing everything I'd built. That's I won't pretend otherwise." He took a slow breath. "But somewhere between breakfasts where you reminded me to eat, and quiet evenings, and you waiting up for me at midnight, and the way this apartment started feeling wrong the moment you weren't in it, the marriage stopped feeling like a sacrifice. Long before you were pregnant, staying married to you had already stopped being something I had to endure." He looked directly at her. "I fell in love with you." Wainan's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was the only one," she whispered. She admitted, through tears, everything she'd been carrying since the pregnancy. How affectionate he'd been before, how openly he'd wanted her, and how all of that had quietly faded once she became pregnant. "I thought you got what you needed," she said. "I thought every time you touched my stomach you were just reminding me why I was actually here." The words hit Jungkook harder than anything he'd faced in that hospital hallway. "I never knew you felt that way," he said, shaken. "I never stopped wanting you, Waina. Not for a single day. But the doctors mentioned some concerns at one of your appointments. Nothing serious, just precautions about strenuous activity given your specific situation, and I became far more cautious than I needed to be. I thought holding you, protecting you, taking care of you was enough to show you how I felt." He shook his head slowly. "I never realized that pulling back the way I did might make you feel like I didn't want you anymore. I thought protecting you was the same as loving you properly," he admitted quietly. "I should have asked what you needed instead of deciding for both of us." Waina gave a weak, watery smile. "Idiot. I know," he said. "Next time," she said, "talk to me. Don't carry everything by yourself. Don't decide what I'm thinking without asking." "No more assumptions," Jungkook promised. "No more hiding things because we think we're protecting each other. We face things together from now on." He glanced toward the door, where their son's soft cries could faintly be heard from the hallway, already commanding the attention of both sets of grandparents. "He's barely an hour old," Jungkook said, a small, tired smile breaking through, "and he's already got the entire family wrapped around his finger." Waina laughed softly. Exhaustion and relief tangled together in the sound. Jungkook leaned down and kissed her forehead, then gently pressed his lips to the back of her hand, and finally softly to her mouth. Jungkook had married Waina because he was afraid of losing a title. Months later, with that title permanently secure and the heir everyone had once demanded sleeping safely just down the hall, he finally understood how replaceable both of those things felt beside the simple, terrifying possibility of losing her. Their marriage had started as a strategy. Somewhere between quiet breakfasts, midnight waiting, and feelings neither of them had known how to name out loud, Waina had become home. When do you think Jungkook actually fell in love with Waina? And did you expect him to walk past his own son just to reach her first? Let us know in the comments below.